The global telecommunications industry has its eyes on one of the world's biggest prizes, building Australia's national broadband network. Hoping for a big piece of the action is Chinese company Huawei, the second biggest telecom equipment provider in the world. The telco giant has launched a political and public opinion charm offensive aimed at diffusing the security concerns that follow because of its Chinese heritage. Here's Philip Lasker.
If it's possible to be a low-key global colossus, this is a Chinese company that fits the bill.
Huawei is one of the biggest companies that no one knows anything about, and that's been our own fault, and we're changing that. We're educating people about who we are.
Who they are is the second biggest provider of telecom equipment in the world behind Ericsson, and a supplier to many carriers operating in Australia like Optus, Vodafone and Telstra. They claim 50% of Australians use their products, and they have played a major role in building national broadband networks.
Huawei is the only company in the world that is currently delivering a wholesale network in the United Kingdom and in Singapore. So we're the only company globally that has the technology currently in play, tested and in the marketplace.
But the company's ambitions have been blocked in the world's biggest telecommunications market, the United States. US authorities and the Obama administration have stymied numerous attempts by the Chinese company to buy into US telco equipment makers.
They seem to suggest they know something about Huawei which they can't tell us, which basically will prevent them from acquiring any companies, significant companies in the US and doing big business here.
The suspicion springs from founder Ren Zhengfei's origins as a senior official of the People's Liberation Army.
He was, like many of his generation, part of the PLA, but he was sacked from the PLA in the early 1980s with a million other people at the time. It's not uncommon in China at that period. We don't hide that fact at all. But to say that's our link and therefore we are, if that's the only link that people have, then I think it's quite a tenuous one.
And Huawei also point out that they're a private company owned by their employees, not the state. That privacy extends to its presence in Beijing, which is not its headquarters, where it operates out of a nondescript campus in close proximity to the Chinese Aerospace Research Centre.
Its ownership is not transparent. They claim employees own the company, but I think in many cases for these private companies like them in southern China, employees were given shares, but they basically gave them back to executives, so we don't know who owns them. There's an intrinsic suspicion that comes with the chief executive and founder's links with the People's Liberation Army. Another senior executive has perhaps an even more sinister link, which is to the Ministry of State Security. Now, these may be perfectly explicable, but China just is not transparent, and I think they're unable to explain these links in a way which satisfies anybody.
Huawei was also involved in an intellectual property lawsuit with Cisco and was mentioned in a 2007 report by the US Air Force's Policy Research Institute, the RAND Corporation. It said Huawei maintains deep ties with the Chinese military.
I think the report is still relevant. The sections on Huawei and China's defense electronics complex, I think, are still valid.
The Australian also reported that ASIO officers met Australian Huawei officials who told them the company was employing technicians with direct links to the Chinese army.
I can categorically say that it's not true.
Huawei says it has good relationships with all government organisations on both sides of politics. Last month it was a major sponsor of a conference at the Liberal Party think tank, the Menzies Research Centre, attended by Tony Abbott. Opposition spokesman Malcolm Turnbull paid the company a visit in China a few weeks ago.
We think it's very important that companies, not just Huawei, but all companies get involved in policy and thought leadership.
But security experts like Des Ball can't separate Huawei from the behaviour of its home government, which is among the world's leaders in cyber espionage.
I'd be very wary when it comes to our telecommunications architecture. You're basically giving on a platter access to official communications, official databases, our national security secrets, as well as potentially a whole range of economic information and other private information which can be exploited.
The agencies, as you would expect, are in discussions with us for such a piece of national infrastructure. It's important that we make sure it's secure and reliable.
There's been no communications with us about any concerns about Huawei whatsoever.
But straight talk isn't always a feature of the heavily politicised communications industry.